Well, I said I'd come back, and here I am.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Maybe it's because I'm a glutton for punishment. Well, whatever the reason, welcome back to the Office of the Patriot. I'm your host, as always, Myron Ybarra. Almost a month has passed since my last presentation and a bit over 60 days since President Trump took office. So I felt it was fitting to go over some of the milestones he's accomplished during this time and how it's upset the Democrats and their leftist minions, well, to no end. By no means is this a complete list, but here are some of the highlights of President Trump's first 60 days in office. He's brokered a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia. He's reversing the unfair trade practices, specifically with Canada, Mexico, and China, that we've had to endure under the previous administration, he who shall not be named. He's proactively securing the border and prioritizing deporting known violent criminal illegal aliens. That's a mouthful. And he's reversing DEI policies within the federal government, holding state, county, and city governments to account. And he's doing that by withholding federal tax dollars if they continue to prioritize DEI policies. And he's slashing regulations that stifle the U.S. economy. And we're going to go over all of these orders and the left's reaction to these actions in this episode of Office of the Patriot. All right, let's get into this. Big bad evil Russia versus poor defenseless innocent Ukraine. Well, that's at least what the Democrat Party would have us all believe as it relates to both of these countries. The truth is significantly more complex than Ukraine being bullied by Russia. Is Vladimir Putin a douchebag? Well, of course he is. But that doesn't mean that Zelensky isn't a douchebag as well. So why did this war start? Simply, Russia does not want any NATO nation any closer than it already is to its mainland. When Bumbling Joe alluded to the fact that Ukraine was going to be included in NATO, I'm sure Putin panicked and decided it made more sense to reclaim Ukraine via a war than risk their admittance into NATO. Now, the Democrats are losing their collective fecal matter because Trump not only wants to end this senseless war, but he also wants to end it without any U.S. military involvement. And how he plans to do that is to broker an economic deal that requires Ukraine to pay back the billions of dollars we loan them via a rare earth mineral resource partnership with them. Now, some of you may be wondering, how is that going to stop Putin from continuing his invasion of Ukraine? Well, that's actually pretty simple. This partnership will require U.S. businesses and thus U.S. citizens to be in Ukraine to follow through in this trade alliance. If U.S. citizens are in Ukraine and Putin decides he wants to continue his invasion of Ukraine or maybe resume it at a later date while Americans are in Ukraine doing business, it's no longer a United States proxy war with Russia. The United States will get directly involved because the United States citizens will likely be injured and or killed if or when Russia decides to attack Ukraine again. And I'm pretty sure this is something that Putin wants to avoid at all costs. So, Ukraine gets the safety it claims it wants, and Putin gets assurances via Trump that Ukraine will never be allowed to gain admittance into NATO. Now, I believe the reason why the Democrats and the Rhino Warhawks are pissed about this peace deal is because they have a lot of money not only going to Ukraine, but going to their buddies at Raytheon and General Dynamics and Lockheed Martin and, well, just about every other military defense contractor that dumps money back into their campaigns to keep them in office.
Vicious circle.
It's essentially a Ponzi scheme that requires the blood of soldiers and innocent civilians. Next, you have Canada, Mexico, and China behaving like douchebags because Trump wants to even the playing field as it relates to trade agreement with these countries. I'm sure many of you have heard the left is whining about the tariffs Trump plans on imposing upon Canada, Mexico, and China. Now, at this point, all of these tariffs are on hold pending renegotiation. Two of these countries, Canada and Mexico, via the USMCA agreement, and then with China. Now, all of these countries have voiced their intent to retaliate against Trump's tariffs with tariffs of their own. However, all of these countries already do this. This is what Trump is trying to correct. In some cases, some of these tariffs on goods that we ship to them are taxed over 100% of their original value. And not only does that hurt our manufacturers and distributors here, but it also hurts the citizens of those countries because they have to ultimately pay for those tariffs. Not that Mexico or Canada or China gives a shit about their people anyway. But if you're going to fake the funk, at least make it somewhat believable. But unlike these countries, Trump does care about Americans, even the dumb, ungrateful leftists. All these countries need to do is come back to the bargaining table to renegotiate trade agreements with the United States. I mean, why wouldn't anybody not want to renegotiate unfair trade practices with other countries? If these countries want to continue imposing tariffs on us, on the United States, on our manufactured goods rather, then we'll just do the same. And Trump has already said that if these countries refuse to renegotiate their tariffs or if they punitively increase them, then the tariffs he imposes will stand. Then the new tariff revenue we collect will offset income tax revenue, especially for those individuals making $150,000 or less, and that's roughly 75% of the entire United States population. And if the tax schedule stays, well, somewhat the same, being a graduated tax schedule, the people who are above this income level are also going to see a reduced federal tax liability. And again, why the hell are leftists screaming about this? If you're a leftist, I definitely want to hear from you. So do me a favor, stop what you're doing, take a couple of seconds to type in or dictate a comment in the comment section below of why you believe the tariffs that Trump is going to impose if these countries choose not to renegotiate trade deals is a bad idea. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't see how this is a bad idea at all. And, well, speaking of bad ideas, why is the left up in arms about securing the border and deporting thousands upon thousands of criminals? Scratch that. Violent criminal illegal aliens in the United States. I'm sure you've heard of the recent decision by some rogue POS judge, I can't remember his name, James Boasberg. Yeah, this douchebag. This judge decided to issue a restraining order to stop the Trump administration from deporting violent Venezuelan gang members who are here illegally, even though it is within the president's power to do just that. These illegal alien gang members were deported under the Alien Enemies Act, which was passed by Congress back in 1798. Here's a video courtesy of Fox News showing some of them being received by El Salvador. Well, it looks like El Salvador knows how to deal with these criminal terrorists.
deseo ser tomada.
But there's a bigger problem. The left is changing the mechanism of their lawfare against the Trump administration. As of late, there's over 170 court challenges against orders and actions the Trump administration has taken. And this is an unprecedented amount of lawfare, and I'm sure it's by design. What amazes me is the Democrat Party lost this election because they embraced an ideology that the bulk of the American people, Democrats included, do not support. Sure, there's a bunch of pink-haired trans feminists out there who are screaming F Trump. But despite their loud screeching and obnoxious voices, in the scheme of things, they are a very, very small subset of Democrats. And you would have thought the mainline Democrats would have listened to their constituency and realized that they stepped too far left. I kind of have a belief as to why this happened, though. I believe it's because the Democrat leaders have, basically shown their cards. They were always socialists and communists. They've always wanted to have a totalitarian world government, likely with China at the head. However, what they didn't expect is most Americans do not want this. So what I believe is going to have to happen is much like the MAGA movement. Moderate Democrats are going to have to splinter away from the extremists in their party to reform their party or, hell, start another. All this to say, Trump is doing a damn good job in securing the border and making America safe from criminal illegal aliens. And I think he's being pretty magnanimous about it. I mean, if they self-deport now, they retain the ability to apply for citizenship through legal channels. However, if they're caught, they'll be deported and they're just ass out. Don't pass go, don't collect $200. In fact, they don't get to collect any more of our money. And that's a good thing. Next, Trump is believing the science. He's recognizing that there are biological differences between men and women. More to the point, he believes that there are men and women, and these biological sexes are not interchangeable. And he's tasked his cabinet, his administration, with making sure that the prior administration's policies regarding sex, gender, and ultimately DEI are removed. And I believe this is especially critical in our military and law enforcement ranks. I was in the military. I was in from 1984 through 1998 active and 88 through 92 active reserve. And I remember our drill sergeant yelling at us. He really didn't give a crap where we came from or how much money we had or what our skin color was or what our ethnic background was. In fact, anything that had to do with our identity pre-military had no bearing on what we did from the point we stepped off the bus and threw on our BDUs to when we ETS'd. And ETS'd is the abbreviation for end time in service. It's the discharge from your military commitment. And doing away with DEI in government makes absolute sense. DEI is nothing more than the next step of affirmative action. And if you're one of the people who benefits from DEI, then the truth is you're not really benefiting at all. Sure, you may have the position, but I can promise you, you definitely don't have the respect. Because if there's any question amongst your peers or subordinate staff or even your supervisors that you acquired your job not based on merit, but based on some immutable characteristic that some bean counter in HR used to check off a box, well, respect is the last thing they will have for you. And finally, Trump is slashing regulations. Now, Democrat politicians have been up in arms about conservatives wanting to slash regulations for as long as I can remember. They claim that regulations make everything fair and equal, and I call bullshit. especially, or rather explain to me how it's fair to mandate innovation like in the area of automobile manufacturing. Pre-Trump, the big push was for EVs. Virtually every single major car manufacturer tooled up for this new era in modern transportation. Then they realized, well, shit, the technology just doesn't exist, or it's cost prohibitive to implement without putting an undue burden on the end purchaser, you and I. And thanks to Trump, he's reversing all of that. Hopefully, we'll start seeing the prices of cars drop, and maybe, just maybe, the introduction of some inexpensive options for young adults just getting into their lives. I'll tell you what I'd like to see. I'd like to see Trump empower RFK Jr. to deregulate the USDA and the FDA food manufacturing mandates. Wouldn't it be nice to have local farms and local ranches supplying fresh fruits and vegetables and fresh meats and fresh dairy and eggs? We can model what's being done in Amish communities. But right now, it's absolutely impossible for someone to go buy, say, a half a gallon of milk that's been unpasteurized or unpasteurized cheese. However, if you go to Europe, they still have access to unpasteurized milks and cheeses. Is there more of a risk for foodborne illness as a result of consuming raw or minimally processed foods? Well, of course. But as an American, I should have the choice. And I got to tell you, if I have to pick between raw and minimally processed foods versus chemically enhanced foods, I'm going to take the former every time and twice on Sunday. And honestly, I think most Americans will likely do the same. What's baffling is why Democrats won't get behind the idea. But I think we all know the answer to that question. Overall, I think Trump is doing a phenomenal job. Sure, he has a crap ton of roadblocks that have been placed in front of him, much like they were during his first administration. And these roadblocks have, well, they've slowed his progress of fixing America. But he shouldn't let these roadblocks stop him or even dishearten him. Hell, the guy's been through more than just a few trials. He's been shot at and ostracized by virtually every single legacy media and online outlet in the United States. But he still keeps going. This is the time when Trump really needs to start pushing back against these leftist operatives hard. We are getting a very small glimpse of what America can be if we stay the course. And I don't know about you, but I like what I see so far. And this concludes today's episode of Office of the Patriot. If you enjoyed the presentation, please take the time to like, subscribe, and share this channel on your social media. It is appreciated. Also, please take the time to comment. Viewer engagement via comments is the major metric for channel accessibility on virtually every single social media platform. YouTube, Facebook, X, MeWe, Rumble, you name it. The more people that like, subscribe, and comment, the more this channel will come up when social and political content like this is searched for. And as always, have a blessed day and stay safe out there.